Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Paid Family Leave webinar. I'm Jen Donovan from the Board Stakeholder Engagement Unit, and joining me is Courtney Valley from our Office of General Counsel. Today, we will provide an overview of New York State's paid family leave benefit as it pertains to adoption and foster care leave, including updates for 2024 and resources to help you. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, today we'll be sharing important information with you regarding New York State's paid family leave, with a specific focus on how working parents can use paid family leave to bond with their newly adopted or fostered child. Since its implementation in 2018, paid family leave benefits have been significantly enhanced to further improve the lives of working New Yorkers and their families, including providing more time off, more uses for paid family leave, and more financial security. In today's presentation, we'll start by discussing why we need paid family leave and then cover some basics you need to know, including the 3 original uses of paid family leave, an overview of the benefits, how much it costs, who is eligible, and steps you need to take to request paid family leave for a newly adopted or fostered child. We'll review some frequently asked questions about this type of leave, point you to some helpful resources, and then leave time at the end for your questions. As I mentioned earlier, you can submit your questions at any time during the presentation using the chat feature, but we'll hold them all until the end. So let's go ahead and get started. Why do we need paid family leave? For too long, employees have struggled to maintain their jobs when they need to care for a loved one during a specific time of need, whether that's welcoming a new baby, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, or dealing with family pressures when a loved one is deployed abroad on active military service. Employees in these situations face the stress of losing income when they need to take time off to help their family, and also fear their job may be gone when the family situation is over. In response to these needs, New York took action. In April 2016, New York Paid Family Leave, the nation's strongest and most comprehensive paid family leave policy, was signed into law. Paid family leave is employee-funded insurance that helps employees be there for their family when they're most needed. Because of paid family leave, workers across New York no longer have to choose between caring for their loved ones and their jobs, as we now have employee-paid insurance to help in these critical times. Paid family leave provides job-protected paid time off so you can bond with a newly born, adopted, or fostered child, care for a family member with a serious health condition, or assist loved ones when a spouse, domestic partner, child, or parent is called to active military service abroad. In addition to paid time off, New York's paid family leave also has strong employee protections. You're guaranteed to return to the same or comparable job after taking paid family leave. A comparable job is defined as a position with comparable employment benefits, pay, and other terms and conditions of employment. You are guaranteed continuation of health insurance while out on paid family leave, on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue paying your portion of the premium while on leave. You're also guaranteed protection from discrimination and retaliation. Requesting or taking paid family leave cannot be held against you. So today we're going to focus on using paid family leave to bond with a newly adopted or fostered child. Paid family leave provides time for parents to bond with a new child within the first 12 months of the child's adoption or foster placement. This includes children adopted or placed in foster care in 2023, as long as the leave is taken and completed within the first 12 months of the adoption or foster placement. Mothers and fathers, including same-sex parents, are all provided the same opportunity to bond with their child. Parents who work for different employers can take paid family leave at the same time to bond with the same child. Parents who work for the same employer can take it at the same time unless their employer prohibits it. In that case, they can take leave separately over the first 12 months following the child's adoption or foster placement. Adopted or fostered children may feel like they've been abandoned and they require time to adjust to their new surroundings and their new caretakers. Constants in their lives are now questionable, and having a healthy transition time is imperative. Paid family leave provides you with time needed to build a connection with your newly adopted or fostered child. For example, helping them adapt to their new home and neighborhood, spending time together to learn about your child's past, likes and dislikes, and providing support and assistance with your child's transition, such as escorting your child to counseling sessions and or attending sessions with them. You may also be able to take paid family leave before an adoption or foster placement is finalized, if you need to be absent from work for the adoption or placement to proceed. For example, if you need to appear in court prior to an adoption or foster placement. In these cases, documentation is needed to show that paid family leave is necessary to further the adoption or foster placement. The second type of leave that may be relevant to families under paid family leave is caring for a family with a serious health condition. If the child you're adopting or fostering has a serious health condition. A serious health condition is defined as an illness, injury, or condition that requires either inpatient care in a hospital, hospice, or residential health facility, or continuing treatment or supervision by a healthcare provider. Unlike bonding leave, family care for an adopted or fostered child who has a serious health condition is not limited within the first 12 months of that child's adoption or foster placement. Now let's take a look at the specific benefits available to you under paid family leave. Eligible employees are able to take up to 12 weeks of paid family leave at 67% of their average weekly wage, capped at 67% of the New York State average weekly wage. An employee's average weekly wage is based on their last 8 weeks of pay prior to taking paid family leave. For 2024, the New York State average weekly wage is $1,718.15. That means the maximum weekly benefit for 2024 is $1,151.16. This is $20.08 more than the maximum weekly benefit from 2023. It's important to note that employees can take this paid time off all at once or intermittently, but it must always be in full day increments. To estimate your wage benefit, use the 2024 calculator on the Paid Family Leave website. Paid family leave is fully funded through employee contributions. The contribution rate is reviewed annually and is subject to change by the New York State Department of Financial Services. In 2024, the payroll contribution is 0.373% of an employee's gross wages each pay period. The maximum annual contribution is $333.25. This is $66.18 less than 2023. Employees earning less than the current New York State average weekly wage of $1,718.15 will contribute less than the annual cap of $333.25, consistent with their actual wages. To estimate deductions, you can use the 2024 payroll deduction calculator on the Paid Family Leave website. So to summarize the benefits and contributions for 2024, the maximum weekly benefit has increased from $1,131.08 to $1,151.16. Also, as of January 1st, 2024, employers can deduct at the rate of 0.373% of an employee's gross wages each pay period, but capped at an annual maximum of $333.25. Now that we've covered the types of leave, the benefits, and the costs, let's discuss who's covered and eligible for paid family leave. Most employees who work for private employers in New York State are covered under paid family leave. If you work for a public employer, your employer may opt into the program. If you're a public employee represented by a union, you may be covered if paid family leave is collectively bargained. For covered employees, eligibility for taking paid family leave depends on meeting specific requirements for the amount of time employees have worked for their employer. Full-time employees, including domestic workers who regularly work 20 or more hours per week, are eligible for paid family leave after 26 consecutive weeks of employment with the same employer. Part-time employees who work a regular schedule of less than 20 hours per week are eligible after working 175 days, which do not need to be consecutive. Citizenship or immigration status is not a factor in employee eligibility. Paid family leave coverage is not optional for eligible employees. You can waive coverage if you regularly work 20 or more hours per week, but won't be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks. Or if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week and won't work 175 days in a 52-week period. Seasonal workers are a good example of this, as they may work full-time, but for only 3 months out of the year. If you meet the criteria for waiving coverage, your employer must provide you with a waiver form, which is also available on the Paid Family Leave website. If you waive coverage, you will not make contributions and will not be eligible for paid family leave benefits. Employers should keep a copy of your waiver on file. If your schedule changes such that you no longer qualify for a waiver, your waiver will be automatically revoked within 8 weeks of the schedule change. You can also voluntarily revoke a waiver at any time. If your waiver is revoked, your employer will begin taking paid family leave contributions and collect any retroactive amounts due. Now we'll cover how to request paid family leave for bonding with your newly adopted or fostered child, as well as how disputes and discrimination issues will be handled. When you're ready to request leave to care for your newly adopted or fostered child, there are 3 basic steps. Step 1 is to notify your employer at least 30 days before the start of your leave, if foreseeable, or as soon as possible. Step 2 is to complete the request forms. Step 3 is to send all the required forms to the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier must pay or deny your request within 18 calendar days of receiving the completed request, or the first day of leave, whichever is later. You must submit your completed request package to your employer's insurance carrier within 30 days after the start of your leave to avoid losing benefits. Now we'll take a look at each of these steps a little more in depth. Step 1 is to inform your employer. Let your employer know at least 30 days before your leave will start, if it's foreseeable. For example, you may be planning to take paid family leave immediately after your adoption or foster placement date, or perhaps you will choose to take it at a later date. You can take it any time within the first 12 months of your child's adoption or foster placement. Notify your employer as soon as you know the dates you want to take leave. If you need to take bonding leave unexpectedly and 30 days notice isn't possible, for example, in the case of a last-minute adoption or foster placement, notify your employer as soon as possible. Step 2 is to complete the required paid family leave request forms. For bonding leave, your request will contain 2 forms. The first one, Request for Paid Family Leave, Form PFL-1, gives your insurance company information about you. The second form, Bonding Certification, or Form PFL-2, requires information to confirm an adoption or foster placement has occurred or will occur. You can get paid family leave request forms from your employer, employer's insurance carrier, or directly from paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/forms. First, we'll look at the request for paid family leave, or Form PFL-1. Every employee who is requesting paid family leave starts with this form. It asks for basic information about you and the leave you want to take, and has a section for your employer to complete as well. You will submit this form to your employer's insurance carrier along with other completed forms for the type of leave you are taking. Form PFL-1 has 2 parts. You are responsible for filling out Part A, and your employer is responsible for filling out Part B. The first section of Part A covers your personal information, including your address, your social security number or tax identification number, and your date of birth. You must also state why you're requesting the leave and how it pertains to you. Next, indicate if you expect your leave to be a continuous period or intermittent. You may not know all the dates for certain, so you can indicate that they are estimated and update your insurer if a change is needed. Finally, you must provide information about your employment, including your employer's location and phone number, your date of hire, your average gross weekly wage, whether you have more than one employer, if you're taking paid family leave from the other employer, and if you are currently receiving workers' compensation lost wage benefits. You then need to sign and date Part A of the form and give it to your employer, who will then complete Part B of the form. Before giving this form to your employer, make sure to make a copy of Form PFL-1. Your employer has 3 business days to fill out Part B of Form PFL-1 and return it to you. If your employer does not return the form, you can still proceed with your paid family leave request. Next, you must complete the bonding certification or Form PFL-2. You will need to provide information about the adopted or fostered child, including date of birth, whether the child lives with you, and evidence of your relationship to the child. For foster care purposes, along with the bonding certification form, you must provide proof of your relationship to the child with a supporting document in the form of either a letter of placement issued by the county or city Department of Social Services or local volunteer agency. If the employee is not named in the placement document, submit a copy of the document evidencing the placement and a second document verifying the relationship to the parent named in the document. So a marriage certificate, civil union documents, or domestic partnership documents. For adoption purposes, along with the bonding certification form, you must provide proof of your relationship to the child with a supporting document in the form of a court document indicating that an adoption is in process or is being finalized, or when leave is taken prior to completion of the adoption, a document evidencing that the adoption process is underway, including but not limited to a signed statement from an attorney, adoption agency, or adoption-related social service provider that the employee is in the process of adopting a child. If the second parent is not named in the document in paragraph 1 or 2 of the subdivision, the employee must provide a copy of the document evidencing the adoption and a second document verifying the relationship to the parent named in the document. So a marriage certificate, civil union documents, or domestic partnership documents. Step 3 is to send all forms to your employer's insurance carrier. Before submitting your forms, make sure to make a copy of Form PFL-1 and Form PFL-2. You will submit the Form PFL-1 and Form PFL-2 to your employer's paid family leave insurance carrier or directly to your employer if they are self-insured. This address can be found in Part B, Question 13 of Form PFL-1. This is the section your employer completed. If the carrier's address is not on the form, ask your employer or contact the Paid Family Leave Helpline at 844-337-6303 for assistance. The insurance carrier must pay or deny within 18 calendar days of receiving your completed request or the first day of leave, whichever is later. If for some reason your paid family leave request is denied or you have another claim-related dispute, such as the amount of your benefits or timeliness of a carrier's decision, you may request to have the denial reviewed by a neutral arbitrator. Your insurance carrier or employer, if self-insured, will notify you of the reason for denial and provide you with information about requesting arbitration. Arbitration for paid family leave is handled by NAM, the National Arbitration and Mediation. More information on arbitration is available at nyspfla.namadr.com. As mentioned earlier, your employer may not discriminate against you for requesting or taking paid family leave, and you are guaranteed job protection with the same or a comparable job upon return from paid family leave. If your employer does not return you to the same or a comparable job, terminates you, reduces your pay and/or benefits, or disciplines you in any way as a result of you requesting or taking paid family leave, you can file a discrimination claim with the Workers' Compensation Board. An administrative law judge may order an employer to reinstate an employee, pay any lost wages, pay attorney's fees, and pay up to $500 in penalties. The process and forms are available at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, or you can call the Paid Family Leave Helpline for assistance at 844-337-6303. There are a few frequently asked questions about paid family leave and other leave policies that may be helpful for you to know. There are several similarities between New York's paid family leave and the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. Both provide leave for bonding with a child, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, and assisting when a family member is deployed on active military service abroad. You're also guaranteed that you will return to the same or comparable position, and your health insurance will continue on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue to pay your portion of the premium cost while on leave. But there are a number of key differences. Paid family leave is paid, FMLA is not paid. Almost all private employers will carry paid family leave insurance. FMLA does not include insurance, and it has a 50 employee threshold for eligibility. The length of time you must work is also different. In paid family leave, if you regularly work 20 or more hours a week, you must be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks for that employer. And if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week, you must work 175 days for the same employer, which do not need to be consecutive. For FMLA, you must have worked for a full year and 1,250 hours in the last 52 weeks to qualify. The biggest distinction may be that under New York's paid family leave, you are taking leave to care for someone else, not for your own health condition. FMLA allows you to take leave for your own health condition. Paid family leave is only taken in full day increments. FMLA may be taken hourly. Also, under paid family leave, you do not need to use other paid time off first. So how does paid family leave work with other maternity and paternity leave policies? To be compliant with the paid family leave law, covered employers must have coverage for at least 12 weeks of paid family leave at 67% of an employee's pay, up to the statewide cap. Employers are free to supplement paid family leave with additional benefits if they'd like. Employers can add to those benefits up to a maximum of an employee's full wages. The combined benefit from the employer and the paid family leave policy may not exceed an employee's full wages. Employers can require paid family leave to run concurrently with their own maternity and paternity leave policies. You should check with your employer about how the benefits interact. So what if the child being adopted or fostered is not an infant? There is no age limit on taking paid family leave to bond with an adopted or fostered child. Again, just keep in mind that bonding leave must be completed within the first year of the child's adoption or foster placement. As you think about how paid family leave may be able to help you and your family, there are resources to assist you. Complete details on paid family leave are available at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, along with other resources, including paid family leave request forms and fact sheets, weekly deduction and benefit calculators, and updates for 2024. If you're thinking about taking paid family leave soon, you can download the forms now and get started filling them out. You can also contact the Paid Family Leave Helpline at 844-337-6303 for assistance. If you are not already subscribed for email updates on paid family leave, including information on upcoming webinars, you can subscribe by clicking Get Paid Family Leave Updates on the bottom of the paidfamilyleave.ny.gov homepage. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss New York's landmark paid family leave with you. We will now use the rest of our time to take your questions. Please keep in mind that the board is unable to provide legal advice, which includes guidance about what you should do in specific situations. If you have specific questions or concerns about a request for paid family leave, you should contact your disability and paid family leave insurance carrier, as they are the entity that makes the decision to pay or deny the benefits. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave these, the contact number and website up on the screen for you. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to answer your questions.
Thanks, Jen. So we have a few questions in here, and like Jen said, you can put any additional questions that you have in the chat. So the first questions that we got was, what type of proof can be requested for foster leave? Since foster placement times can vary, can an employer request proof of placement and date the child was relinquished? So the first thing to note here is that the employer really can't request proof, period. It is, unless they're self-insured, it's your disability and paid family leave insurance carrier who's going to make the decision to pay or deny the request for PFL. Is not going to be the employer who's making that decision, and therefore they really don't need proof because they're not involved in the decision making at all for whether or not paid family leave is approved or not. But if we're talking generally about paid family leave, bonding leave, for foster care, we do need a letter of placement issued by the county or city Department of Social Services or local volunteer agency. And then if the employee is not named in the placement document, there also needs to be a copy of the document that evidences the placement for foster care, and a second document that verifies the relationship to the parent who is named in the document, just to make sure that this is in fact a foster parent taking leave because of the placement for foster care. But like I said, it's going to be the carrier who is actually making those decisions, not the employer. Okay, next question we have here is, if an employee lives in New Jersey but they work in New York, are they eligible for PFL? So I can't give legal advice, so I'm not going to be able to tell you yes or no, this employee is eligible. But generally speaking, when we're talking about whether or not an employee is covered for New York State paid family leave, to be eligible for New York paid family leave, the person has to be what's considered in employment in New York State. And employment has a specific definition under the law, and part of that definition is that they do need to be in employment in New York, meaning localized in New York. And what localized in New York essentially means is that they have to work in New York State. So if they lived and worked in New Jersey entirely, they're not going to be eligible for paid family leave because they wouldn't be in employment in New York State. Does not matter where the employee lives, it matters where they work. So an employee who lives in New Jersey and works in New York could be eligible for paid family leave, assuming they're in employment and meet all of the other criteria. Okay, next question here is this included for surrogacies? Can employees take time off to attend doctor's appointments with their surrogate? So bonding leave is only available during the 12 months following the child's birth or placement for adoption or foster care. So if we're talking about an employee's biological child that's being carried by a surrogate, leave prior to the birth of the child is not available under paid family leave for bonding leave. The adoption and foster care is like if there's like a court appearance or something like that that is required for the adoption or foster placement to go forward, that could count for paid family leave. But generally speaking, when we're talking about bonding leave, it is only for the 12 months. It's available during that 12-month period following the child's birth or placement. Okay, next question here is, can you please go over the maximum benefit information one more time? Sure. So in 2024 and every year, the paid family leave maximum is 67% of the employee's average weekly wage, up to 67% of the current New York State average weekly wage. So for 2024, that means that the max benefit for a weekly benefit is $1,151.16. So it's just the cap is 67% of the New York State average weekly wage. And if you go onto our website, just the paidfamilyleave.ny.gov that you see on your screen, right on that homepage there's going to be an updates for 2024 button. You can click that, and all of that information, like the maximums, the New York State average weekly wage, all of that is right on there for you as well. Okay, next question here is, can you please go over the forms needed to support a request for PFL? So because this is a bonding webinar, I'm thinking that you're asking about bonding. So the thing with any request for PFL, it's going to start with the PFL 1. That's kind of your general PFL application form. So you're going to fill that out. And then for bonding leave, there's also the PFL2, which requires information about that. And then in the instructions on the PFL2, you're going to see kind of the required documentation that you need. So like if we're talking about the foster care, like we just talked about with an earlier question, you're going to need like the document evidencing the placement. If you're not named in the document, you're going to need a document verifying your relationship to there. But all of that is listed on the instructions of the PFL form, and all of those forms are available on the website as well. Okay, next question here is, I work for a TPA and I request that the employee submits the app to me, but should they be giving it to the employer because they are self-insured through trust? I cannot provide legal advice, and that includes specific guidance on requests for paid family leave or like business practices or anything like that. If the employer is self-insured, they are self-insured, whether or not they have a TPA. The employee has to be able to submit their request to the carrier, which, and if they're self-insured, is the employer. I don't know the terms of your TPA and I can't provide legal advice, but that's something that you may want to consult private counsel on. That's not something I'm going to be able to advise you on because I cannot provide legal advice. Okay, next question here is, an employee has been approved to use PFL for bonding, but really they're using it for vacation. Can that leave be denied? So again, if you're the employer, you have no say in whether or not the employee is approved for PFL, that is the carrier. If you believe that the employee is committing fraud, you are free to tell the carrier. Like, you can bring that to their attention if you think that the employee is committing fraud. They may look into it further and then, deny based on fraud. But I do just want to clarify also, like, bonding leave does not mean that you can't go on vacation with your child. Like, there's nothing in the PFL law or regulation saying like you have to stay at home to take bonding leave. But if you do think that the employee is committing fraud, please feel free to bring that up with the insurance carrier, because they are the ones who are going to process and pay or deny the request, including, if there's fraud, they will be the ones to investigate and then proceed accordingly. Okay, so this is a question from someone who works out of state, and they're working for another state that has paid family leave, just asking about, is it still considered paid family leave if it's pre-placement, and if the only things that are covered for adoption, for bonding leave before the placement, is if like a court appearance or like some other kind of thing is required for the adoption or foster placement to go forward. That's kind of the only time that bonding leave is available prior to the placement. I'm sorry. But generally speaking, it is always after the placement, except in the case that if there is something that is required for the placement to go forward, then that could count as bonding leave, and it would be bonding leave under paid family leave.
I see a question about signing up for email updates. The information is currently on your screen. You're going to go to paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, scroll all the way to the bottom of that homepage. You'll see a button that says Get Updates, and it will allow you to enter your email, and you'll be signed up to receive our notifications. Okay, it looks like that is all the questions for today. Thank you, Courtney, and thank you to everyone for joining us. As I just mentioned, you can sign up to receive paid family news, including information on future webinars, straight to your inbox. You're going to visit paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage and select Get Updates. We also distribute information via our social media channels, so please follow the Workers' Compensation Board on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.